Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Surprise!
Let's
Traders,
go.
how are we doing? God bless each and every
I'll
single one
wake
of
up
you
to
guys.
it.
Welcome in, welcome in. We're going to be talking about stock ticker NIO, baby. And going over the broader market, what the local time frame is doing to validate our thesis. But I want to give a shout out, 142 likes to 0 dislike ratio on the last video. So you already know what to do. Slap the like, hit the sub. That way we could help the algorithm identify this channel and grow, baby. All right. Nio Stock on the local time frame, printing a daily hammer candle, looking bullish and riding the wave of the RSI band. This is very, very good for our local time frame bullish breakout as you broke out today of this bullish triangle formation with the flat top resistance, rising support, right? And the profit target theoretically takes you into your next gap fill of 7-11 traders. Now, this technically confluent move gets you dangerously close to the 771 price target, which we have as a key inflection point for the stock, right? This is where this thing's going to decide. Are you going to go a lot higher or are you going to reject and kind of chop around before going a lot higher? Because in case you guys are new, right, we talk about Nio every other day, and our thesis is Nio is going a lot higher. We believe that because this is a very clear shoulder, head, right shoulder formation. And at some point, you will come back to that inflection point at 771, guys. So that's what we're watching for on the macro of Nio. Micro chart looking good, but I do have some concerns that I'm going to bring to you today, right? So make sure to stay the full length of the video. That way you guys can get all the juicy DD. And let's get into Nio. Right, let's go to the daily time frame on Webull. And you can see here on Webull a couple different things, right? On the charts, you have just nonstop grinding price action. And you're forming a beautiful hammer candle on the daily time frame. You have a beautiful golden cross on the daily as well. However, you're seeing the volume continue to be very, very sparse. And what you need to see is you need to see a strong, decisive candle, right? This is strength because you're wicking and you're closing at the heights of it, but your volume here is so pitiful, right? It's very, very small. And when you look at the broader market, IWM is doing the exact same thing, right? You see this breakout very, very clean out of this falling broadening wedge, which the profit target took you to all-time highs. You're very, very close to achieving that. And Nio, right, should follow and do the same. 287 is your price target. However, look at this volume exhaustion on IWM. Pretty much the entire rally here, you've been exhausted. It's the same story on Nio Stock. So that's what I'm watching here is if you cannot find the buyers to push this thing up to the gap fill and to 771, it's very likely that you find a rejection there and then kind of chop around to either reject fully and come back down for a double bottom or test to 560, or right, you create more of a cup and handle here on the local time frame, and maybe that's what takes you higher inevitably, right? Because every single time you've tested 771, right, you failed to close above it on the weekly. And I think that's the story, right? That's the message on this stock. Let's fix this. 771. Close enough. You have failed to close above it every single time on the weekly. In fact, at your height of this run, the highest you've closed within the last 2 years, you closed 1 penny beneath 771. Now, we already knew it was going to be a big point of contention because of this topside wick that drew you down from 771 all the way down to 302. But the fact that you closed a penny beneath it, guys, is just validation that this is going to be the level that sends you to the freaking moon, right? And if this inverted head and shoulders truthfully plays out, guys, and I mean really plays out, your price target is going to take you into your $28 make 'em holler gap fill, right? And potentially, sorry, I drew that slightly incorrect. The price target for it brings you up to 18, which is also a huge point of contention on the stock from this bear flag, but I would be led to believe if you get to 18, you're most likely going to the gap fill. Currently sitting at $28, guys, from this move down in January of 2022, right? So on the macro chart, we are watching heavily how this thing plays out. But the signs are there, and it looks freaking delicious, right? Looks amazing. On the 4-hour, not a lot. You do have a current uptrend that you want to hold on this breakout that you're just holding currently. But if you fail to hold that, I do anticipate that you fall back down to this per current trend line as well, which also takes you somewhere between the 200-day EMA, right around $6 flat. So that's not a worst case scenario. I think worst case scenario is you make this shoulder, head, right shoulder, and then you fall from there. I think that would be no bueno, right? Because the structure is kind of there for it. Shoulder, head, you come back down to 560 or 540, whatever it may be, and then you see that right shoulder. That would be your worst case scenario, because the profit target from that takes you pretty much all the way down to the depths of $4 again, and that would just make everyone feel like this breakout would be impossible. I do believe it would happen anyway, because I'm bullish long term on this stock. You're securing net profitability quarter over quarter, surprise results. Your revenue and your deliveries are up, and just the retail sentiment in the stock is unlike a lot of other stocks that I've worked with and charted. And I love every second of it. The Nio community is one of the strongest communities out there, so much love and power to you guys. But seeing this breakout, you want to see volume step in. Like we said, right? If you're going to get to this gap fill and fill it, you want to see strength from the bulls perspective. Otherwise, it's very likely you spill over here and you kind of just lose the momentum of this rally. Also possible scenarios, right, is Nio loves doing this. You kind of fake the breakdown, test your previous local high, and then you go, right? That's very, very possible here on the broader side of this setup, because you saw it back here, right? This was your local high, currently sitting at 540. You saw a rounded top. Everyone was like, it's over, it's over, it's over. Tested the resistance, one more test of the golden cross, and then you sprung, baby. So that's what we're watching for on the local time frame, trying to see if there's any more guidance or direction that the stock's giving you right here. But really all you're doing is chopping along the 9-day EMA. That will be your first sign if this starts to spill over, is you will lose the trend line and you will lose the 9-day EMA. Currently, you're holding above both, so you are still inherently bullish. I just would like to see volume step in here. Just in case you guys are not aware, SPX, or the S&P 500, reached a new all-time high, which bodes well for the Russell 2000, right? IWM to do the same. And this is where it gets exciting on Nio Stock, is when you compare the two, right? You compare the last time IWM went to Pluto, right? Went to $66, and then you look at IWM. There's striking similarities to these two run-ups, right? There's very, very similar scenarios. And if you pull up IWM on the charts, not only do you get this crazy breakout on the charts, but what you get is, compared to Nio, and we've done this a couple times. I do it on new plane because that is one of the most important parts of it, because you want to see from a vertical trend line perspective, where did this thing really kick off, right? I'm just going to put from the bottom here, and let's say June 20th. And that's where it really started to run up here. This was during your flat top resistance breakout of IWM, when you got that squeeze rally, right? Risk on came back to the market. And I think we are dangerously close to seeing that again. You're starting to see AI bubble inflate. You saw Allbird AI announce that they're getting away from the shoe business into the AI business, right? And then things 1,000%, right? And you're seeing it every other day that a stock does this. That is one sign that you are in a bubble and that you are continuing to inflate risk on assets. Now, although not good for the broader market, I do believe you're going to get one of these moves, because you have Kevin Walsh coming into the market, Trump already saying yesterday that he is going to be cutting rates, which is beneficial to IWM moving up, right? To risk on assets performing or outperforming the S&P 500. If that happens, guys, I anticipate that you will see, whoops, we're not there yet. I anticipate that we will see, guys, this inverted head and shoulders breakout. And if that happens, truly, from the bottom of my heart, I do believe you're going to see these price targets of $18, $20, right? But it's if. It's if. And we need to see it soon. You can't really afford to spell out all the way into the end of 2026, all the way out until 2027, right? Although it would still be bullish to maintain this uptrend in order to keep the what's the word, symmetry of this inverted head and shoulders, you really have within the next 4 months to break out here. 4 to 5 months, right? So that's what we're watching here on Nio Stock. One thing I did want to talk about on Nio Stock is the weekly Bollinger Bands, guys. You're doing something kind of crazy on the weekly that you haven't done since the last time you squeezed, right? We're going to go over that. We talked about the weekly Bollinger Bands being a big implication here on the larger term macro, because the Bollinger Bands, although they don't predict direction, they do predict volatility, right? You saw this happen back here on the weekly where the bands were squeezy, and then you broke out. And as you broke out, you continued to peek your head outside of the bands, dip back inside, peek your head outside of the bands, dip back inside. And then you saw a loss of that mid band on Nio. Now, what's bullish here is you're curling up this mid band, curling up the mid band, which will act as rising support while also expanding the weekly bands. And you are trading outside of them using the runway as support, which I cannot say enough, traders. 99% of price action oftentimes happens within these bands. The fact that you are riding them outside of the bands is inherently very, 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 very bullish, right? Because these bands and staying outside of them will allow for the velocity that they expand to pick up the pace, right? And there's a very good opportunity, because this is the first time that you've actually closed 2 candles on top of after wicking off in a very long time, right? Upwards of here, right? This was a rejection. You failed to hold the top band. Rejection, failed to hold the top band. Rejection off the top band. Rejection, failed to hold the top band. And then you bring yourself all the way back to 2020, right? So when you're watching this happen, I ask you, this is very, very similar to the price action that you experienced back here in June of 2020. That was when we saw IWM go crazy, right? You continued to mount the top Bollinger Band as support, right? You had a couple dips back inside, and then you did it again, right? Mount. If you want to see this sustained, you should be watching the top Bollinger Band very, very closely, what it does in the weekly time frame. And then if you come back to the middle band, if you hold that, right, that this run is sustained. Because once you lost it here, really was kind of over, right? You lost it here, and then you have failed to significantly hold it, right? Rejection. Break back above, try to hold it, rejection. Rejection. And then finally, right, you got back above it, traded sideways after hitting the top, and then bink. And so the fact that you're expanding the bands, right, on the weekly time frame, you're not far from the bull zone of the RSI, which is really where you see these kinds of candles, right? August 18th, 2025, that's where you saw a 32% weekly candle, is when you first peek your head back inside the bull zone. Now, we called this on my lovable AMC, right? And we said, if you peek your head inside the bull zone on the RSI, you're going to go bananas. What happened, right? Peeked your head inside the bull zone. Right here, you saw the next 3 days 7%, 6%, and 8.4%. And on the weekly time frame, you're not even there, right? You're not even there on the weekly time frame. So the fact that Nio is almost in the bull zone on the weekly time frame bodes pretty well. And so that's what I'm watching for on Nio Stock, right? On the weekly time frame, you need IWM to continue to potentially make an all-time high. If you see a peel back here, anticipate that it's going to fill the gap at 253, in which you would see max capitulation before this thing sends higher. So that's all we got today on Nio Stock. I appreciate each and every single one of you guys. You guys have been an absolute blast the last week as retail and the community wins, right? Feels like a lot of winning is going on. So I'm grateful to have you guys. And remember, guys, the best is yet to come. Much love and peace.